One thing I'm super passionate about is increasing awareness around the crazy amounts of toxic chemicals that we find in our furniture and especially our mattresses. We spend a third of our lives sleeping, and most of us are sleeping on mattresses that have been smothered in flame retardants, which are quite frankly poisonous to our health and especially to children. In this episode, I speak to Rebecca Willis from Cotton Safe Natural Mattress about just how damaging these toxins are and what we can do to protect ourselves and our families. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Healthy Home Show, and today I have with me Rebecca Willis from Cotton Safe Natural Mattress. Hi Rebecca.
Hello there, thanks so much for having me today, Charlie.
Oh no, thanks very much for taking the time out because as I was just saying to you, I have been following your work for a while now and I just absolutely love your ethics around your chemical-free mattresses, your sustainability ethos. And I'm always so impressed when other people are out there kind of like beating the drum on promoting a toxin-free environment. So could you please tell us a little bit about how you came to start Cotton Safe Natural Mattress? I think you transitioned, didn't you, from a futon company before?
Yeah, so the business was a futon manufacturer for about 30 years. And I mean the credit has to go to our predecessor Mark Dowen, who was my husband's employer previous to us taking over Cotton Safe at the point that he wanted to retire. But lots of concerns. He started to develop real concerns around the fire retardant chemicals that were used in furnishing fabrics, soft furnishings, foams, spray adhesives, and those sorts of things, and really just the pace at which we were using those chemicals without any real research on the environmental and human health risks associated with them. So I think back in 2005, he started, just private research, personal research, developing relationships with other people within the industry that had some of these concerns. And his research kind of coincided with a bit of a death of the futon industry as well. Futons were really fashionable in the 80s and 90s, but the marketplace became saturated by low quality, cheap products being pushed at really cheap prices. And they just started to die a death. And so as a business, to survive, Mark kind of recognized that change needed to occur anyway, and it sort of played in nicely to the research that he was doing and the concerns that he had really started to develop. He was experiencing health issues himself. He was aware more and more of people that he had, close friendships with that were starting to develop illnesses as well, and just really kind of wanted to understand where that was coming from. I think we're guilty of just saying, oh, I've got a bit older and that's why that's happening, rather than kind of looking at it more holistically. Is it happening across the board? What age groups is it occurring in, and what are we seeing? So that's kind of what motivated the change, the concerns and a change in the industry. And from there, he wanted to start working with products that he felt, or we kind of already knew he could kind of harness the power of nature, and bring back products, fibers that we've been using for hundreds and hundreds of years that have been replaced by cheaper products, easier to produce products, and that's kind of where it started from. And from there, he very successfully patented the first chemical-free mattress ticking, brought the first chemical-free mattress to the mattress market, using natural fibers. But there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. So yeah, that's kind of our story of how we moved from futons into mattresses.
Well, fantastic. And what was it in the research then that was done in 2005 that was shown to be kind of alarming in the products that were being used in the bedding industry or in the futon industry? I mean, I've got a bit more experience with flame retardants in sofas, but I hadn't thought about it so much in mattresses. So in the research you did back in 2005, what discoveries did you make?
I mean, the fire retardants are the same. We're using them in furniture, carpets, curtaining, fabrics, soft furnishing fabrics, even though the regulations don't mean we need to. But I think, there are some key things that the research has taught us over the years. It has been proven that the flame retardants in our furniture actually make fires more toxic for humans. So people are more likely to die from the toxic smoke than they are to die from burning from a fire. And when the FRs, the fire retardant chemicals, burn, they quickly release large volumes of toxic fumes like hydrogen cyanide. And millions of our sofas and mattresses contain these flame retardants, which are banned for being toxic. And there are toxins that we're using, chemicals that are banned from sheep dip, that we're still allowing humans to sleep on or sit on in our furniture. I think there's some kind of like key takeaways from some really basic information there that needs relooking at. I mean, we could talk about all the different types of chemicals that are in there. There are over 80 different types of brominated chemicals, and these are POPs, so they're persistent organic pollutants, which are now banned. These chemicals have had a huge effect on our environment, and they can now be found in areas of the world that have no direct contact with the chemicals that are in our furniture. So they can be found in the North and the South Poles, and they get into the waterways, and then they're found in our foods, and so we're just ingesting these toxins, and they have been directly linked to cancers, thyroid issues, neurotoxins as well. There are significant links with these toxins to the IQ in children. So there have been several studies that have shown that there's the higher prenatal exposure to these toxins have led to poor attention, hyperactivity, slower motor development, links to more bullying and aggressive behaviors in children as well. And I think, if you start to look at some of the increases in ADHD, autism, anxiety in children in schools, the science is there that really does back up that what we've done is we've made it much harder for us to avoid these chemicals. They're in our homes, and our children particularly. I have two small children. Our sons are 3 and 6, and we're very conscious that they're coming into direct contact with the fire retardants that are in our furniture, in our home as well. They create toxic dust. They don't stay in the furniture for the lifetime of the product either. So, I think more recently we went to a peer review in London, and we were talking with a local authority regarding waste disposal, and they were talking about the disposal of furniture and also testing the furniture in terms of the fire retardants remaining in them. And what we know is that at the point that a mattress or a sofa leaves the manufacturer, the fire retardants are in the sofa, but by the time that sofa or that product comes to end of life, it's no longer within, those chemicals are no longer within our furniture, and what happens is they break down and they create this toxic dust, and they just go into our homes, they go into everything else, they go into our carpets, our flooring, and so they just remain within our space and our environment constantly. And I think it's really concerning to think that we're being told that these chemicals are there to make our homes safe from fire. And we know that actually those products aren't fire safe by the time they come to end of life anyway. So it's not safe on both sides. It doesn't keep our homes safe from a fire, and it doesn't keep our health safe and our environment safe.
Yeah, it just seems so strange that the regulations are holding on to these fire retardants so much when all the evidence is out there that not only is it bad for our health because we're breathing in these toxins within our home, but they're not actually serving the purpose effectively that they were meant for in the first place. I mean, I always feel bad that as a landlord, I've been a landlord for quite some years now, I have to specify furniture within the places that I let out that I know is not particularly helpful or healthy, I should say, for my tenants. And I find that so difficult. And I know that you've done a lot of work of campaigning around this. And I was speaking to actually Chloe Bullock the other day, who's an interior designer. You may know her. She's a vegan designer as well. And she does a lot of work with interior design declares around this. And I just can't seem to understand why it seems so slow, the change around this, when it's my understanding that wool and cotton can be just as effective as in case of a fire.
I mean, it's twofold. We do know that the production of natural fibres is more costly, and I think it's fair to say we recognise that our mattresses at Cotton Safe are more expensive than some of the mattresses that you can buy on the mattress market, and we've worked very hard as a business to try and keep those costs as fair to our consumers, to our customers as we can. We have, as a business, we're a small business, we have to be economically viable. We have chosen to produce our products in a way so they are handmade. Our team are very skilled at making those products in very traditional methods, and that also comes with a cost as well. But natural fibres are more costly to produce, and that's one side of it. And I think all individuals have a price point. There is a point that you kind of say it's now outside of what I can achieve. We try not to get too politically heated about this, but essentially there's a lot of money in chemicals. There's a lot of money to be made in chemicals, and there are some significant political relationships that mean that essentially the government isn't ready to kind of draw away from that financial backing. And I think, if you want to use Teflon as a good example, if we've been impregnating furniture into our impregnating chemicals, into our furniture for 30 plus years, and the government come forward and admit that there are significant health risks associated with these, I think there's a real fear around what the public reaction would be to that, and what the financial impact of that public reaction could be. And so I think there's a lot of we know there are a lot of political decisions being made around this. I mean, we had I don't know if you've heard of fibre. They're an environmental charity, and they've been working very hard. We've had some kind of communications with them, but they've been working very hard over the last couple of years with the furniture industry and with the mattress and bed mattress industry to kind of lobby the government and campaign the government to, again, review the way in which the essential safety requirements are tested around the chemicals and an industry statement, consensus statement went out last year. It was published last year, and it was signed off by some big players in the mattress industry, some big players in the furniture industry as well. Cotton Safe, we've lobbied a lot, but we're still a small voice in a very, very big world. But some of the big boys got on board this time, and that was really positive from our perspective. But I'm just going to read it here to make sure that. So the UK furniture and fire regulations are currently under review, but the Office for Product Safety and Standards, which is the Department of Business and Trade, have said that fire and smoke toxicity are not to be included within the scope of the essential safety requirements.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to dramatic pause, but I think if you take that a minute to let that sink in, they're still not ready to look at these tests that have been proven to be that the toxic smoke is so toxic and it's so dangerous, but they're not going to change the way in which they regulate it and test it.
Is it correct
what do you do?
that? Well, yeah, exactly. What do you do? I mean, when I look into the regulations around this, it's my understanding that in Europe, their regulations around this are slightly better. Have I got that right? It does make you wonder how Europe are kind of managing to get behind or on top of this kind of toxin issue in not only bedding, but furniture and food. Predominantly, actually, they're kind of on top of the pesticides in food a lot more than we are here in the UK, and I never really understand why that is.
If I'm honest, I don't really understand it. I mean, I think, like I said, so much comes down to politics. So much comes down to cost, and I think we're very slow to change. We're very slow to change, and I think that is a surprise when actually, as a nation, Britain, the UK have always been quite forward thinking. I do see us one way or another, whatever you think of the last few years, we've definitely had a tricky political environment and a tricky economic environment. But I see British people as quite forward thinking, quite open minded, and actually, therefore, I agree with you. Like, why is it taking us so long to change? But I think there's another side to this as well, and it's about kind of consumer knowledge. There's a lack of knowledge out there, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of misinformation as well, and so it's really hard to pick through what the different manufacturers are doing and who's greenwashing, what is greenwashing, and then actually choosing what feels right for you as an individual and for your home. And I think actually, because we know, that statement is very clear, the change isn't going to come from the top on this one. So actually, we as individuals have to start promoting that change for ourselves. And the more people that are willing, the more consumers that are willing to promote change within their own homes and their own lives, I feel like will naturally mean that there will be a natural fall towards a reduction in these chemicals, and a reduction and an increase in the use of natural fibres. But these things do take time, and it is about holding these conversations with people, and more people hosting these conversations, whilst trying not to scare the pants off people as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think it can be very overwhelming for people, and which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, because I'm educated in health and in toxins within the environment, and I still find it really overwhelming because there are so many different brands out there that proclaim themselves to be natural or organic or whatever, but when you dive deeper into the brand and their ethics, they don't look quite as quite as rosy as they say they are. So it can be really overwhelming. And so I really wanted to be able to promote companies like yourself on this podcast to help people make more conscious consumer choices. Are there any particular labels or anything to help consumers out there basically make a more chemical-free, sustainable choice when they're looking for products for their home, particularly bedding?
I think yes, there are. I think we have to be realistic. There is no real life Disneyland, and I think we have to be careful that we don't assume that because something's certified, everything else is bad. And we have to be careful that because something has a certification, that means that it is definitely delivering everything that we want it to. And that's key for me. I mean, I think for us, one of the things that we're quite focused on and hope in the future we can get a better handle on is GOTS certification, which is an organic certification. You've got things like Ecotex certification as well. And we've been asked lots of times as a business that promotes chemical free, why we're not Ecotex certified and why we're not using all our products as such. And if I'm honest, the reason we don't is because we don't think it goes far enough. It says that these chemicals are unsafe, and so for you to be certified, you have to have removed these chemicals. But there are lots of other chemicals that it says they see as okay. And from our perspective, that's not helping people who are chemically sensitive, who are finding that they're experiencing more and more allergic reactions to things, asthma, eczema. So from our perspective, Ecotex doesn't go far enough. But that's not to say that for an individual consumer, if they feel like that's very important, that they shouldn't then purchase something that carries that certification. And I think that for me is the key thing, is to speak to the manufacturers, to speak to the companies that you are looking to purchase from, and understand better the product before you purchase. And we, as at Cotton Safe, one of the key things for Jamie and I was we always said we will be honest about what's in our product. We will tell you what's in our product, and ultimately, if we don't meet your expectations, then we recognize that we're not the right manufacturer or retailer for you. But we will always, hand on heart, be honest. There's a lot of this term greenwashing, and it's extensive. It really is extensive. And I think there's a misnomer that if a product is an organic product, that means that it's 100% organic, and that isn't true. There only needs to be a percentage of an organic item within the product for it to be listed as organic. So that doesn't mean that you're necessarily getting a fully organic, fully chemical free, fully pesticide free product. It just means that there's a percentage of the product within, or a fibre within the product, that is chemical free and organic. And we have to be really, I think we as consumers have to be really clued up, and our customers definitely are. Sometimes I think they know more than we do, and I definitely get caught on the hop sometimes, and I have to say, actually, do you know what? I need to go back to our supplier. I need to ask those questions and find out, because I can't hand on heart tell you that yes, I 100% I'm giving you what you want. And I think if you're talking to a company who will say that to you, then you can have some comfort that they're kind of co-aligning with your ethics, they're co-aligning with your thought process. And I think that's what's really important as well.
I think that's really honorable, though, because I think that's half of the problem, in that we're all learning this journey together. And we're only really just discovering at the moment, how many toxins are in our environment. When I speak to my clients, they're always a bit overwhelmed because they're like, oh, I've just realized, the value of nutrition and exercise in my diet. And now you're asking me to look at kind of toxins that they're bombarding us within our home, and it can be a bit much sometimes. And yeah, we can't all have all the answers. So I think it's great to be open and all learn about all these toxins in our environment and our products together, basically, because if we share the information on this, then hopefully we can get the message out there faster. I was going to ask you, are there any different regulations around children's products and mattresses as opposed to adults? And do toxins affect children more than adults, or is it the same?
So there are no different regulations. The safety regulations around children's products are kind of directly related to things like choking hazards, SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, suffocation. In terms of the toxic chemicals, no, it's all the same. Children's mattresses are treated the same as adult bed mattresses, which actually they shouldn't be, because from a size perspective, they don't meet the required size to need the level of flame retardants. But because it's a mattress, for example, from our perspective, it has to meet BS 7177, which is the kind of UK fire regulation for mattresses, and the test with relation to mattresses. And is it impacting children more than adults? They are more in contact with it than I was when I was a child. You know, I was born in the early 1980s for my sins, and it was, you know, they were only really just starting to come into our homes and environments at that time. But we know that these toxic chemicals are found in women's breast milk, and that children are more likely to ingest because they are so mouthy. So they will put everything in their mouths. They like to test everything with their mouths, particularly at an early age. They will crawl around on the floor. So they are kind of coming into closest contact with the chemicals. Whereas an adult, you tend to, you know, be taller, be sat up. You're less likely to lick the arm of the sofa, just to just to test it. So yeah, I mean, they are more at risk, and their bodies are smaller, so the rate of ingestion is much higher.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always alarmed when people use like things like bleach and horrible cleaning detergents on the floor, and then they allow their babies to kind of like roam around. And skin is obviously one of our biggest organs. So they're just absorbing these
Yeah.
chemicals through their skin all the time. And the poor pet as well, who like the dog's on the floor the entire time, absorbing all these kind of horrible cleaning detergents basically through its skin. I was actually going to ask you, so okay, we need to change our mattress. But if someone hasn't got the budget at the moment to buy a whole new mattress, are there any tricks that you would recommend that is like a make do solution for now until we can afford to change our whole mattress? And also,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you after that, how often do we really need to change our mattress?
So so there are cheaper solutions than just needing to find £1,500 for a luxury mattress. You know, there are very simple things that you can do that can just give you a bit of distance when you're in bed, which is using mattress protectors, waterproof protectors. Sleeping on a toxic-free duvet on top of your mattress will also give you some relief from it. I think quite often when people come to us, one of the first things we would advise is a topper, just because you're getting just that bit of extra fibre between you and your mattress. So that's a really good starting place. But anything you can do, I think one of the mattresses for us are key because sleep health is so important. And we talk about a lot, we see a lot, sleep health is about putting your phone down, not using your TV late into the night, reduction in blue light usage. But actually sleep health should go further, because obviously we know that at night, our bodies are more susceptible to ingesting the toxins within our homes and within our mattresses because our pores open, and we essentially we lose a lot of fluid at night, which allows our bodies to then ingest it. And at night is the time when we are least clothed as well. So I think, good quality sheets, and making sure that you're washing your sheets and your bedding regularly as well is really key, because what you're doing is you're just allowing a nicer, cleaner sleep environment as well. So that's really a really good opportunity to create a safer sleep environment before you're at a point where you can kind of make that decision to change the mattress. And then how often should you change your mattress?
Yeah.
So industry standard would be around 7 to 10 years for a good quality mattress. It would depend really on how you care for your mattress. Mattresses need care a bit like your car needs a service and an MOT. So we encourage people to flip and rotate their mattresses regularly, make sure they're sleeping across the top surface of the mattress, make sure that you're changing your sheets regularly, using mattress protectors so that your mattress isn't coming into contact with any sort of inhospitable creepy crawlies that will come into your home environment, water loss during the night, and that sort of thing as well. So if you're caring really well for your mattress, we warranty our mattresses for 10 years. And we would anticipate that somebody should get a good 10 years out of their mattress. Again, if your budget allows, if you can add a topper to your mattress as well, that will also give you probably up to another 2.5 to 5 years on the life of your mattress as well.
Fantastic. And I've seen on your website that you recommend Panda as one of the pillow brands and duvet brands. Is that correct?
So we're stockists for Panda for their mattress protectors and their duvets. We don't stock their pillows because they use memory foam, and we know memory foam is full of fire retardants. So we make our own pillows. We at home personally, we use their bedding as well. As a business, we've chosen not to become stockists for their bedding at this point, because having used it at home, we sort of feel that there are a couple of issues with things like duvet drift, which they have some clever solutions for, but we have sort of kind of made that business decision as a small business. If we had to deal with customer complaints around that, it would be it's more difficult for us to manage because it's not our product. But
What's duvet
actually,
drift?
I would do so because their products are bamboo, which is really soft and silky. I think it feels nicer than silk to me. But what does happen is your duvet will slide across the sheets a little bit. So they've put really clever little ties into the corners of their duvet. So if you have a Panda duvet with a Panda duvet cover, you can tie in the corners. But if you buy a duvet cover from Panda but have your kind of another duvet, you are at risk of kind of the drift and the duvet sort of disappearing into the duvet cover a little bit.
I've never heard of that term before.
No, I know. Well, I hadn't until about 2 years ago, but but actually we have found our youngest son has quite significant eczema, and we have had lots of issues with reactions to all sorts of things. And I think this is really interesting and shouldn't be forgotten, is we talk about natural fibers, everything should be natural, but actually some of the things that some people react the most to are natural fibers. Our son can be quite reactive to cotton. I'm aware there's lots of starching treatments in cotton bedding, and I think that's key. You want to avoid any treatments that are going into your bedding and your mattress. But what we really have found with the bamboo bedding that we personally use from Panda and then stock is that his eczema has significantly reduced, and we're not seeing nighttime flare-ups of it. And so I feel personally, and this is just a personal experience, but I feel like it was the right choice for us and for our family. And so on that basis, all of our bedding across both our boys and our own are all bamboo, 100% bamboo, and it's the organic certified bamboo as well. And it's really cooling. We absolutely love it. It's really thermoregulating. So I feel really emphatic that I'm really positive and would always personally recommend it. But and we love their duvets. But as a business, as a small business, sometimes you just have to make that decision over management of consumer expectation as well. And we do, again, we
Yeah.
talk about chemicals. We're very used to products that are pre-starched, got anti-wrinkle chemicals in them. So once you wash them, they come out, and then they come out really, completely smooth. So you don't need to iron them. When you remove those chemicals, you get back to the natural fibre. And actually, a lot of products do crease. Cotton does crease. Linens do crease. And we have an expectation as a consumer these days that things are just perfect, and actually to create perfection we've created all kinds of other issues, and I think it's just about mindset change as well.
Absolutely. I'm reading this book at the moment that points to that, actually, called Fatal Conveniences, I think it's called. And it basically talks about all the conveniences that we've created in our lives that have actually made our lives more toxic and made us iller. That's not even a word, but anyway, made us, like opened us up to so many more illnesses and diseases and stuff because of the conveniences that we put in our lives. I mean, even just down to things like obesity, because now you can actually order your food to your sofa, or, people don't take the stairs anymore, or, all these conveniences that we brought into our lives, like not having to kind of iron bedding, have their massive downsides normally for our health. I haven't actually tried bamboo bedding yet. I'm gonna definitely give that a go. I think I've basically been guilty of getting some memory foam toppers like years ago, and then thinking, oh no, now I've got to change all those. But sheets I find is an absolute minefield, because I get stuck in the shop thinking, okay, what's the difference between Egyptian cotton, all the thread counts? I was standing there going, you need a degree in bedding to be able to work this out. Have you got any guidance about thread counts? Do they matter? Is there anything in it?
I genuinely don't. I honestly couldn't tell you either. And I've stood in many shops and then called my mum and asked her. Even in my early 40s, I still refer back to my mother for her advice on bedding. um, and I don't know. There seems to be an older generation that seem to really understand this, but I think maybe that's because there was less choice then as well, and we have so much choice. So I can't answer a question on thread count. Only that I would recommend people give bamboo a go, and I would also recommend giving bamboo a go if you're finding that you have sensitivities, because actually it's a product that's been largely unavailable to us in the UK. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a more modern, fashionable fibre here in Europe, and in the UK. Obviously in China it's a wonder product, but again, going back to Panda, one of the things we like about them is that we feel that their ethos and their ethics co-align with ours in terms of sustainability, because we do recognise, in Britain now, particularly in the wake of Brexit and some of the confusing politics that's gone on, people have this expectation that they want everything to be British made and come from Britain. And actually, that's just not realistic. We don't have the industry or the manufacture to do that. So, but what we can do is is again do the research to find companies that, when products are coming from other areas of the world, that we can feel comfortable that they've put the work in to ensure that there is kind of good employment regulations in place for their workers, and that they're meeting good sustainable regulations as well. And that's what we really liked about Panda. We did quite a lot of work and we spoke to lots of companies, and we sort of landed on Panda, and then we personally tested it at home before we brought it into the business as well.
And sustainability is a really key point that you make. Yeah, bamboo obviously is a much more sustainable product at the moment, and faster growing, etc. So there's been a real push towards that, not only in the kind of like textile industry, but fashion industry as well. But talking about sustainability, I note that your mattresses are much more kind of sustainable at end of life, because obviously the fire retardants, it's not just toxic for our health as humans or animal health, because it potentially can get into the water supply, etc., but also at end of life of these products, I think we really need to think about how sustainable they are when they come to the end of use. What kind of research did you do into that for your mattresses?
Well, so we know that natural fibres are biodegradable. So we know that the wool and the cotton within our mattresses, will just kind of go back into the earth. We know that with the removal of the chemicals, that they're not off-gassing, and so they become safe to sort of strip down and put back into landfill and biodegrade. One of the things that we are open and honest about is there is polyester in our mattresses. We do recognize that that is a plastic. We have lots of conversations with our customers that we recognize that in its purest form, that makes it a chemical. So we do have to have conversations around, when we're talking about chemical free, we're talking about toxic, harmful chemicals rather than, chemicals that can be sustainable, can be recyclable, can be reused, and actually aren't taking from the environment in the way that harmful chemicals do. I had a conversation with a customer recently, which was, when you're thinking about polyester as a chemical, actually you can also think as air and water as chemicals as well, and we recognize that they're natural, and as long as they haven't got lots of toxic chemicals in them, that they're a safe chemical, and we ingest them and we need them to live. So the polyester element of our mattresses is fully recyclable, and is toxin free as well. And actually, the reality of it is it makes the mattresses viable, and it means that we can ensure the longevity of the product as well. I won't go into too much detail because it's a bit of it's not a secret, but there's a lot of work for us to do. There's a longer term plan that we're currently working with a company, a British company, to redevelop some of our products so that we can move away from cotton, which is obviously sourced from outside of the UK, and transfer over to wool, which will be sourced from within the UK and British farms. And within that wool product will be a biodegradable polyester that's got certified. So we know that we don't tick every box on a Disneyland sustainability list, but we are always looking to improve, and we feel really comfortable and confident and emphatic that we've met the chemical free element. We are meeting people's chemical free need in terms of their sleep environments, and that we are really confident. I mean, I don't know if we've mentioned, but we recently launched our chemical free sofas, and we're just about to launch upholstered chemical free bed bases and headboards as well. So we feel like we've met a lot of need in terms of meeting the chemical free. So the next journey for us is, how do we take our products to the next sustainability level, and how do we do that to, whilst as a small business, that has to be a journey for us. It's not just going to happen overnight. If I changed all of our products over to 100% organic, 100% biodegradable, people wouldn't buy them. We wouldn't be able to afford it.
Mm. Mm.
And we would outprice ourselves in the marketplace. So there's a journey for us, and there's interestingly, as part of the peer review that we had back in last summer, when many of the companies that make beds and mattresses came together, there's been a lot more conversation around how do we make sure that our mattresses are dealt with by the recycling centres at end of life in the right way. And so we're looking now at options for QR coding our mattresses as well. So a customer and the local authorities can QR based on a label that will be on the mattress, and it'll bring them across to a website which will tell them exactly what's in it and where it came from and how to dispose of it and what can be done. Because whilst our mattresses could be taken to landfill and our furniture could be taken to landfill, the difficulty that we have at the moment is, and we do recognise this as an issue, is that our furniture in the UK at end of life is treated as biohazardous waste.
Okay.
Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. But what's happening is because the local authorities don't have the capacity or the funding to check the details on every single mattress, every single sofa, every single bedstead that comes into them, it's all treated the same. So it all has to go for processing. And essentially, we know that a lot of it doesn't get processed in the way that it's supposed to be processed because they just don't have the capacity. So as an industry, if we can move forwards to make sure that there's information there that means that the local authorities know that this mattress has come from this company and therefore it contains X, that therefore means that it has to be burnt in a certain way to remove the pops from the product, then that's great, because it then means that a cotton safe product can be taken to landfill at its end of life, and they can say, right, we know we can strip that down. We know that the cover is entirely biodegradable. We know that has polyester in it, so we can send it for recycling. And obviously the metal within the springs can be, reused, refurbished. A spring unit in a mattress should last 30 years. So there are
Wow.
options for regeneration and refurbishing them as well.
I mean, that's such an amazing idea, actually, because you're right. I think so much effort can be put into the production of something with chemical-free processes, etc. But if the people at the end of the process who are doing the recycling, etc., don't know how to dispose of it effectively and recycle the key parts, then it almost makes all the effort to begin with like not worthwhile. Apart from it's better for our health, obviously. And I love your message around, it's you don't have to replace everything at once. I mean, obviously, if you've got a bottomless pit of money, it might be great, but it's all about kind of just taking kind of active steps towards making the change. Because I sometimes get people that I work with that are completely overloaded when I say, okay, we're gonna go through changing your beauty products, for example, and all the kind of skincare with all the chemicals that we put on our skin every day, and that our capitalist society convinces us that we need like 14 different skincare products on our skin every day. And sometimes people understandably can get overwhelmed with that process. And I'd be like, well, I've just spent a shitload of money on all those products. I don't want to like dump them, basically. But it's all about making a kind of slow, gradual change for the better, and just to change our habits around these buying processes. Have you found a difference in the kind of attitude of your clients? I mean, I know you mentioned you've got kind of like diehard fanatic kind of fans of customers that are really well clued up on toxins and chemical free products, but have you found in general that there's a move to a better consumer awareness around this?
So I think we have two or three different types of customers. We have your diehard, I need to remove chemicals from my home types of customers, And like I said, sometimes they know more than we do. And I think, oh, well, go home and end up on Dr. Google myself thinking, now I'm terrified again. And alongside those customers, you have people who are starting to dip their toes in it, who do spend time on Google, and they come to us incredibly concerned and anxious and thinking, how do I have to change my whole home and I have to do it tomorrow. And I do say to them, it's okay to take a breath. There are parts of your home that are more important than others, and there are lots of things that you can do to take baby steps into this world. But it's just it's incredibly expensive, and with the best will in the world, you cannot avoid them. The minute you get into your car, they are there. The minute you step on a plane, they are there. The minute you go into a restaurant, into a shop, into your office, it's everywhere. It's in the air, it's in the water. You cannot avoid it. So it's about what steps you can take to reduce the risks and to reduce your exposure in a way that makes you feel safe, and also keeps you feeling well in your mental health as well, because I think that's really key. But I also feel like, my husband and I are trying to do a little bit of work on our house now, and we're the same. We don't have hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank that mean that we can afford 100% wool carpets, VOC paint, free paint across the whole home. We're lucky I can get mattresses at a fairly cheap rate. But it's about taking those baby steps for those people, and then we have people who want an organic product or a natural product. Their focus is on the natural, and then their knowledge of the chemicals kind of comes alongside that. So they suddenly find out that there's an option for chemical free as well as natural, because just because it's a natural mattress doesn't mean that it's chemical free. There shouldn't be that assumption. And then there are people who just have no idea. They just have no idea. They've just found us because they have a price point, and up we pop on Google, and then you start having the conversation with them, and they sort of say, well, I had no idea there were chemicals in my mattress. And those conversations we tread very carefully, because again, I don't want to scare people, and I don't want to take people down a path that they're not that interested in either. I think we have to be realistic about what people do or don't want in their homes. And, we've done a lot of work. We blog, we've campaigned, we've lobbied, we've tried to use our voice to give people as much information. But if people don't want that information, I don't want to enforce it on them either, because I think, life is tricky, and life is not perfect. Life is messy. And, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, life has been very messy for us, across the world, but here in the UK particularly. And I think I don't want to make people's lives more complicated by adding to the stress. So I think it's just about giving people enough information to give them the opportunity to make an informed choice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But I also do think, though, that as we spend so much of our time sleeping, that probably the mattress is the first place to start. I always think that, and the water filter, and you pretty much nailed your kind of like main areas. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today, because I've always been fascinated about what you do, and I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing in campaigning against fire retardants, because it flummoxes me sometimes why there hasn't been bigger changes in this area made already in government regulations. So it's so nice to see your campaigning, and I'm really grateful for the work that you do in that area. And thank you so much for basically spending your time chatting with me today. Where can we follow you? Where can we find you?
So you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. I will be very honest, we're a small business. We make mattresses through using traditional methods, and that with that comes a fairly traditional approach to social media as well. But you can find us online at cottonsafenaturalmattress.co.uk. And, we are always happy to talk to people about how they can work towards creating safe sleep environments and toxic-free environments in their homes. I'm always happy to talk through our products with people and help people start to take those steps towards a chemical-free lifestyle. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thanks again. And I really look forward to following your sofa work. That's a new one. I'll have to kind of like take a deep dive into those. But yeah, thanks again for your time today.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.